Hey there, welcome. I'm Shawna with the Astro Psyche, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Venus and Pisces because Venus is just recently moved into the sign of Pisces. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what Venus is as a planet, Venus's symbolism, and the archetypal components of Venus, as well as what Venus and Pisces means, particularly for us as we experience it through this sign, and also just natally in the birth chart, what Venus and Pisces means. So, all the Venus and Pisces things. So to begin, I want to share with you a quote from a psychotherapist and astrologer, Greg Bogart. This is from his book, Astrology and Meditation. He says, Venus governs our evolution as beings of the heart, able to connect with others, to give and receive love and affection. Venus also represents refined tastes and appreciation of whatever is beautiful, refined, and pleasingly formed. So I think that was like a really good encapsulation of Venus. And I want to add to that a little bit and elaborate on it. So Venus is classically relationships, love, beauty, aesthetics, the arts, creativity. It's also a symbol of our social conception, our social construct of femininity, and people that identify as feminine. The concept of mothering and nurturing is sort of in there a little bit as well, but that goes more to the symbolism of the moon. Venus is also about healing, and that's a big component to Venus, is this concept of healing and cleansing and renewal. And I think of the healing component of Venus as connected to this idea of Venus is calming and regulating. So Venus tells us, it gives us information about what we find. Sorry, I have a pop-up that came up here, so I'm just getting rid of that. So Venus tells us what we find calming, soothing, and regulating, what we find pleasurable. And that is what ultimately what pleasure is it has this effect on us that not only makes us feel good, but it also is calming, regulating, and sort of helps us find a sense of psychic balance and psychic renewal. Venus is also connected to our social style. So I want to sort of break apart. The moon and Venus are both connected to our way of connecting and relating to other people. It's our social style, our attachment style. Now, the moon is more connected to the way in which you intimately attach with other people. So we can call this your attachment style. We can call this your love language. We can call this how you do relationship, whatever way that you want to talk about it. The moon tells us about your early childhood patterning when it came to relationships, what you experienced. And from there, we can sort of get a theme, get kind of like the symbolic threads of how you connect with people now and what your style and what your approach is. Now, Venus tells us more about how you have been socialized collectively by your community to interact with people. So whereas the moon is more like relationship style based on your immediate family and your very early childhood years, Venus is more like social connections and relationships based on your experiences as an adolescent, as a young adult, and as a person in your cultural context. So I hope that that makes sense. I feel like that's an important distinction, and it's important to say that um, that there is no one thing in the chart that is everything. I think that we so much want to, because we're human, we want to say, okay, this thing tells me everything, and astrology doesn't work that way. Astrology is like us. Astrology is complicated and nuanced and complex and messy, and sometimes things don't really fit together. And you're like, what the fuck is this? But it is your chart, and it is you, and it is beautiful. And I digress. So my point in saying all of that uh, is that when we look at the moon as well as Venus, it tells us a lot about how we show up in relationship, tells us a lot about how we connect with other people, and how we bounce off people. So Venus in particular, so the moon is like, okay, how is it that you're behaving in relationship? Venus tells us more about what you're attracted to, what you find alluring or appealing or pleasurable. And it also tells us about the things that you find disgusting or revolting or off-putting in some kind of way. It's like that's the polarity of Venus. And we can see this when we go into the origins of astrology. In Mesopotamia, they originally correlated, which is where astrology began. Ancient astrologers, they correlated Venus with Inanna, the goddess Inanna. And Inanna was the goddess of love as well as war. And so we can see the origins there, where Venus was correlated not just with love and sex, but also this desire to also have conflict or to fight for something. So that kind of like that like aversion kind of energy is a part of Venus as well. And I think that we don't often talk about it, but it's a part of it, because the very nature of desiring something or being attracted or turned on about something means that there is something else that just doesn't do it for you. And so these are all themes around Venus, right? The last thing that I'll add as far as general symbolism of Venus, and then we'll go into Pisces, is that Venus is also about your worth and value and concepts around what it is that you value, what you value in others, and what you value in yourself. And so all of these themes, we can get a beat on this. We can get a feel for this when we look at where and how Venus is configured in your birth chart. And we can also track Venus around the zodiac in relation to your birth chart. So I want to talk about that more in a moment, because that's really key. And let's sort of fit that into Venus and Pisces, which is happening right now for us. And then also maybe you have Venus and Pisces in your birth chart. So Venus and Pisces is a very beneficial placement, whether it's transiting or in the birth chart, because in what we call essential dignities in astrology, essential dignity is just basically saying how easy or challenging is a planet going to be in this particular sign. And it's a whole system, super complicated. If it's new to you, don't worry about it. All that you need to know is that Venus does very well in Pisces, typically, because Pisces allows Venus to like unfurl and expand and to be Venusian in the way that we in a very culturally normative kind of way. So Venus Venus's symbols of relationships and beauty and aesthetics are amplified and intensified and expanded in the sign of Pisces. So we like this, right? We like it when a planet is in exaltation, such as Venus in Pisces, or when it's in its rulership. Venus is in its rulership in Taurus and in Libra. Those are the signs that it rules. So this is when it's like, okay, Venus stuff is going good. And when a person has this placement in their birth chart, that's not to say that relationships are all easy. I think that most of us have ups and downs with relationships, a little mix. It really depends on, again, the whole of your chart. But what I have found is that when a person has Venus in Pisces, the Venusian energy for them psychically and then also in their external life is like amped up. It's very amplified. So this may be a person that is very passionate about beauty and aesthetics, and they have a really good eye for symmetry and beauty and what the human mind naturally sees as pleasing and regulating and soothing. This could be someone that is an artist, that is an artist in the way that we think about, drawing or sculpture and things like that. It could be someone who is an artist by trade, like clothing design or makeup artistry or hairstyling, things like this, where the aesthetic element is like a core part of who that person is and what they do in the world. Those are Venusian kind of themes. And people with Venus and Pisces are going to be highly oriented around relationship and desire and attraction. And sometimes that's easy and pleasant and it works. And sometimes it makes life more challenging. It's just, what kind of challenge are we going to have in our lives? Now, Venus spends about a month-ish in a sign. So we have Venus in Pisces for like around about the next month. Depending on the speed that Venus is traveling at any point in time, it spends about 20 to 30 days in a sign. And so we all get to experience Venus in Pisces energy during this time. And what else do I want to say about that? So I want you to be thinking about Venus and Pisces, and you can kind of think of if a person were an embodiment of Venus, and then there were a person that were an embodiment of Pisces, what kind of conversations would they have? What kind of activities would they do? How would they interact? How would they play together? And how can you allow those kinds of experiences to show up in your life while Venus is in Pisces over the next month or so? How can you bring more awareness to your relational dynamics, to the things, people, places, and experiences that you find pleasurable and enchanting? And when and how do you feel desire in your life? And then we get to experience Venus moving through a particular part of our chart throughout the year. So wherever Pisces is in your birth chart, that's going to be like kissed by Venus. And this is really important because Venus also sort of brings like this element of healing and blessings and ease into our lives, wherever it is. Like whichever house it is transiting in your birth chart, that's the area of life that gets a little bit of grace. And when we pay attention to this, we can kind of like tap into that flow of energy. And when we, this is why astrology is so cool, because when you know what's happening symbolically, then you can go with the flow of the natural energy that's happening. So you can go with that natural Venus and Pisces kind of energy. And then when Venus moves into Aries in late February, it's a different kind of flow. It's a different kind of energy. So Venus in Aries is very different. It's more dynamic. It's more confrontational in relationship. It's more about like really going with your instincts. Whereas Venus in Pisces is more about being in the moment in relationship, like really soaking into how you feel around the people that you're connected with, and what people you find very regulating and very like connected with, like the people that you feel more connected with yourself when you're around them. Pisces is all about altered states of consciousness and awareness and reflection. So Venus in Pisces is about being more reflective and thoughtful in our relationships, being more sensitive to what's like the psychic connections that are happening. And then contrast that to Venus in Aries is like acting on instincts and going with your gut and saying like, yes, I want to do that. I want to make that plan. And tapping into that part of you that where there's like that instantaneous movement. And then, of course, each sign has its own kind of flavor and elemental energy based on the element that it is, and its own sort of like actional kind of flavor based on the mode that it's in. And so the other piece of this too, so we look at the house that Venus is transiting through your birth chart, and then we also look at planets that Venus may be aspecting. And so all of this gives you information on where you're going to find a little more ease, a little more flow, a little more relational connection, and even healing, if that is something that that you want to prioritize at this time. So I'd be really curious what, if you have a copy of your birth chart, maybe you know what house Venus is transiting, and how that may show up for you. What kind of themes are connected with that house? And just a really sweet example, like super simple, fun example of this is I am having transiting Venus make an aspect to my Venus around this time. And I went to go get a little cup of coffee before filming this video, and the person in front of me got my coffee for me. And it was such like a nice surprise. And I was like, oh, how interesting. This is totally like, and it's one of my favorite coffee places, and it was really delicious. And it was just like a sweet sort of happenstance little treat. And so these things don't have to be like big, huge archetypal events, though that may happen for you depending on where you're at in your life. But it can be these little sweet moments that we can tap into, that we can enjoy and appreciate. And when we notice these moments and we know the astrology, then we can make those connections. And that is how we learn that language of astrology. That is how we connect with astrology, which helps us connect with something that's deeper and more meaningful. And there's like this connection with with soul, with psyche, with um, with the unspoken and the unseen. So that feels, I was going to say that feels like a good place to end, but I do want to pull a card for us to just sort of seal out the energy. And if you, I would love to hear how this resonates with you, what comes up for you as you hear about Venus. Okay. Ooh, so I pulled the Sun card. See if you can see this through the glare. So this is from the Good Tarot. And I'll read you so when I was pulling this, I was kind of like, what do we need to know about Venus right now? Sun, abundance. At this time, everything is possible, and everything I need to know is illuminated. Projects come to fruition, relationships flourish, and my growth is assured. This is a time of plenty. It's important that I share this abundance with others. I'm deeply grateful. Wow, how beautiful. So I love that piece where it said relationships flourish, and this abundance theme feels really important with Venus in Pisces in particular, and that this is a time for you to flourish, for you to expand and grow in a way that feels soothing and satisfying. So thank you so much for being here with me. I hope you enjoyed this. If you're interested in learning more about astrology, I am an astrologer and a counselor, and I would love to work with you. All right, talk to you later. Have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful month.